We were sitting across from each other in the kitchen. Dinner half eaten. The air between us thick with something that had been building for weeks. Maybe months. Maybe longer than either of us were willing to admit. It wasn't one of those loud fights. Not the kind where dishes fly or doors slam. It was quiet, sharp, heavy. The kind of fight where every word feels like it carries too much weight. The kind where silence between sentences is louder than shouting. She looked tired. Not physically. Just tired of me. Tired of the way I kept trying. Tired of the way I asked her to meet me halfway. Tired of the conversations. The work. The effort. And I was tired too. But not of her. I was tired of trying to build a bridge to someone who kept lighting it on fire from her side. I don't remember exactly what started it. Something small. Something stupid. It always was. Maybe I asked why she'd been so distant. Maybe I said I didn't feel connected anymore. Maybe I brought up how we barely even talked without arguing these days. And she rolled her eyes, put down her fork, and said it. Stop trying to fix everything. This is just who I am. She said it like a final answer, like a slammed door. Like that line was supposed to end the discussion and excuse every bad habit, every cold moment. Every time she shut me out and called it just how she deals with things. I stared at her, waiting for her to soften, to laugh and say she didn't mean it, to reach for my hand like she used to. But she didn't. She just sat back in her chair, arms crossed, face blank, like she expected me to fold, to say, okay, I'll keep trying anyway, because that's what I always did. I tried. I fixed. I made excuses for her silence, her anger, her refusal to grow. But not this time. I looked at her, took a slow breath, and said, I believe you. That was it. 3 words. No drama, no tears, no raised voice, just truth. And in that moment, she smiled. But it wasn't a kind smile. It was the smile of someone who thinks they've won. Someone who thinks surrender means submission. She had no idea that I wasn't surrendering to her. I was surrendering the relationship. I was letting go. Because when someone tells you, this is who I am, and that who they are is someone who hurts you, dismisses you, refuses to grow with you, that's not honesty. That's a warning. And this time, I listened. I didn't argue, didn't plead, didn't ask her to try again. I just got up from the table, put my plate in the sink, and walked out of the room. Not out of the apartment, not out of the relationship, not yet. But that was the moment it started, the first step out. She didn't notice right away. She probably thought it was another mood. Another silent night followed by another morning of me apologizing for needing more than she was willing to give. But something shifted in me that night. Something deep. Something final. I stopped trying. Stopped fixing. Stopped explaining myself. Stopped hoping she'd change. Because I believed her. I believed that this was who she was. And I realized I couldn't keep loving someone who made their lack of effort my responsibility. That night, she fell asleep before me, like always, back turned, breath steady. I lay there, eyes open, heart quiet, mind clear. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel confused, or desperate, or hurt. I felt done, not angry, just done. And the thing about being done is, it doesn't come with fireworks, comes with silence. Peaceful, certain, unshakable. She had shown me who she was, and I had finally believed her. Now all that was left was to stop trying to change what I already knew I couldn't fix. After that night something in me just switched off. Not with a bang, not with some dramatic goodbye, but with quiet resignation that settled deep into my bones. I didn't announce anything, didn't say, I'm done. Because the truth is, when you're really done, you don't talk about it. You just stop showing up emotionally. I didn't stop loving her overnight. But I did stop showing up to the same fight, expecting a different ending. The next morning, she acted like nothing had happened. Like her words hadn't cut through every effort I had made to keep us whole. She made coffee, scrolled on her phone, asked what I wanted for dinner. I answered her questions. Short, simple, polite. But distant. And she didn't even notice. That's when I realized how far apart we already were. How long she'd stopped seeing me. Stopped hearing me. So I matched her energy. I stopped asking if she was okay when she looked frustrated. Stopped offering solutions when she complained about her job. Stopped suggesting we talk when tension hung between us like fog. I let her walk out of the room mid-sentence. And I didn't follow. I didn't explain. Didn't ask if we were good. I just let it be. She thought I was tired. And maybe I was. But not in the way she assumed. I wasn't tired from work. I was tired from carrying all the emotional weight in a relationship where she didn't want to do the lifting. I was tired of being the one who apologized first. The one who tried harder. The one who made plans. The one who kept us afloat. She didn't notice when I stopped texting first. Didn't ask why I stopped leaving notes on the fridge or checking if she got home safe. Didn't blink when I went to bed without saying goodnight. First, I told myself maybe she'd realize. Maybe the quiet would echo loud enough for her to hear what I was no longer saying. But she didn't. She just kept living like nothing was wrong. And that was the final confirmation. We'd had problems. Sure. But I'd always been the one reaching, bridging, begging, trying. She had been content with the comfort, the routine, the convenience. Even if it meant I was silently falling apart right beside her. So I stopped. I stopped sending good morning texts. Stopped waiting up when she came home late. Stopped cooking dinner for two when I knew she'd say she wasn't hungry anyway. I stopped asking if she still loved me. Because I already knew the answer. It wasn't even that she hated me. It was worse. She was indifferent. And when someone becomes indifferent to your presence, it's already over. I started spending more time alone. Not hiding. Just retreating. Reclaiming my space. My peace. My energy. I went for long walks. Put my phone on Do Not Disturb. Started listening to music again that didn't remind me of her. Read books I'd forgotten I loved. Watched movies she never wanted to see. And somewhere in that silence, that stillness, I realized I was healing. Not all at once, but enough to know I didn't want to go back to how things were. She noticed eventually. The emotional distance. The way I didn't react when she snapped. Didn't reach for her when she cried during some sad movie. Didn't chase her when she shut down mid-conversation. She asked if something was wrong. I told her no. Because technically, nothing was. I had just finally stopped trying to fix something that didn't want to be fixed. I had stopped trying to fix someone who told me clearly, "This is just who I am." And I believed her. I respected that. But it didn't mean I had to keep breaking myself just to stay close to her. I wasn't angry. I wasn't bitter. I just didn't care in the same way anymore. And that's when the relationship really began to end. Not with shouting. Not with betrayal. Just with me. Quietly. Letting go. Without needing her permission to do so. She started to notice the difference. Not all at once. But in small moments that crept in like shadows she couldn't ignore. At first it was little things. I didn't reach for her hand when we sat in the car. Didn't lean in when she rested her head near mine. Didn't smile when she told me about her day. I wasn't being cold. I was just done pretending warmth was still there. She started testing me. Picking small fights like she used to. The kind that usually ended with me holding her. Apologizing even if I wasn't wrong. Trying to make her feel safe again. But this time, I didn't respond. I didn't argue. I didn't try to explain myself or talk her down. I just sat there. Detached. Unbothered. And that scared her. Because for the first time, she couldn't feel my energy wrapping around her anger. She couldn't feed off my emotion. She couldn't push me just to see if I'd pull her close again. She was used to passion. To fireworks. To chaos followed by intimacy. But now, there was just silence. Unmoved. Final. She started asking questions. Are you okay? Are we okay? Is something wrong? But I knew she wasn't really asking for clarity. She was asking for reassurance. For me to break character and return to the version of me who used to fix everything. But I had stopped fixing. I had stopped trying. And I wasn't going to keep bleeding to prove I could still feel. She noticed I stopped checking her moods. Stopped decoding her coldness. Stopped texting her good night when she stayed in the other room. Stopped caring whether she noticed. I didn't ignore her. I just didn't chase her anymore. And that, more than anything, told her exactly what I felt. That I had finally believed her. When she said, "This is just who I am." So I let her be. Let her rant. Let her cry. Let her spiral. And I watched from a place of calm she didn't recognize. She tried to bring up old memories. Tried to remind me of who we used to be. Tried to use nostalgia like a rope to pull me back. But all I saw were moments that used to hurt. Jokes I used to fake laugh at. Fights I used to feel guilty for. Wounds I had learned to dress in silence. She kept asking, "Where did you go? Why are you acting different? Don't you love me anymore?" And I didn't answer. Not because I didn't have answers, but because none of them would have made a difference. She wasn't listening back when I tried, when I cried, when I fought to stay connected. Now she was ready. Now she was listening. But I didn't have anything left to say. I wasn't mad. I wasn't vengeful. I was just empty. And that emptiness wasn't pain. It was peace. The kind that comes after the storm. When you finally put down the tools. And stop trying to rebuild something that keeps collapsing. She thought love meant constant effort. Endless repair. Always fixing. Even when one side had no intention of changing. But I had learned that love without mutual effort is just emotional labor disguised as loyalty. And I was done working overtime in a relationship where I was the only one clocking in. Now she was the one trying, asking, begging, and I was the one, already gone. Long before I ever walked out the door, she started asking for conversations. Real ones. Not just the routine, "How was your day?" small talk. But the kind we hadn't had in months. The kind where she suddenly cared about where my head was. What I was feeling. If we were okay. But by then, it was too late. Her eyes searched mine for connection. But I had already disconnected. Not with cruelty. Not with bitterness. Just with quiet clarity. "I feel like you're drifting away," she said one night. Her voice shaking slightly like she already knew the answer but didn't want to hear it spoken out loud. I didn't deny it. Didn't pretend. Didn't offer soft lies to cushion the truth. I simply said, "I'm not angry. I'm just tired." That was the first time I saw her scared. Not because she thought I'd yell, but because she could see that I meant it. That I wasn't threatening to leave. I was already halfway out. Emotionally packed up. Spiritually done. She started showing up in ways she hadn't in so long. Texting first. Asking if I wanted to go out. Sitting next to me on the couch like she wanted to be close again. But it didn't feel real. It felt like she was trying to rewind. Trying to tape back together something that had already crumbled. And when I didn't lean in, didn't respond with the same spark, she broke. One night she sat across from me, tears in her eyes, asking, "Why aren't you fighting for us anymore?" I looked at her, and I said it as calmly as I had the night everything changed. Because you told me not to. She blinked, confused, stunned, like she couldn't remember saying it. Couldn't recall the damage she'd done with that one sentence. Stop trying to fix everything. This is just who I am. But I remembered. I remembered it clearly. The way her voice had been firm, final, like she was daring me to accept her flaws as unchangeable truths. And I'd accepted it. And with that, I had accepted the end. Because what she never understood was, love doesn't mean tolerating emotional laziness. It doesn't mean clinging to someone who refuses to grow. It doesn't mean setting yourself on fire just to keep the relationship warm. I had done that. For months. Maybe years. And I was done. I told her, you were right. This is who you are. And I believe you. But I can't keep asking you to be someone else. And I won't keep shrinking to survive it. She cried. Real tears. Not manipulative. Not dramatic. Just heavy. Genuine grief. For something she had finally realized was dying. But it wasn't my job to revive it anymore. I had made peace with the fact that I could love her. And still walk away. That I could understand her pain. Her patterns. Her past. And still choose not to be the one who paid for it. She had mistaken my love for obligation. Thought my silence was endless patience. But it was just the last breath before goodbye. And that night, she finally felt it. The loss. Not loud. Not sudden. But permanent. Because I wasn't mad. Wasn't heartless. Wasn't cruel. I was just done giving CPR to something that never wanted to breathe on its own. She broke down one night. Sat on the edge of the bed with her head in her hands. Her voice barely more than a whisper. Asking me, why aren't you trying anymore? I looked at her. Not with anger. Not with sadness. But with a kind of peace I hadn't felt in a long time. And I said it softly. Because it didn't need volume to carry weight. Because you told me not to. Her head shot up, eyes wide, searching my face like maybe she'd heard me wrong. Like maybe she hadn't actually said those words. But she had. She'd said them weeks ago, casually, dismissively, with a smirk that dared me to take her seriously. Stop trying to fix everything. This is just who I am. And I'd believed her. Taken her at her word. Stopped fighting to fix what she insisted was unfixable. Stopped begging for effort she had no intention of giving. Now she was scared. Because I wasn't angry. I wasn't yelling. Wasn't packing bags. Wasn't storming out the door. I was right there. Present. And completely gone. She reached for my hand. I didn't pull away. But I didn't hold on either. Her grip felt foreign. Like trying to hold on to someone I used to know. Someone I had finally accepted wasn't coming back. Tears fell from her eyes. Onto the same sheets we once curled into on lazy Sunday mornings. She said she didn't mean it. That she was overwhelmed. That she thought pushing me away would make me try harder. Make me prove I loved her enough to stay through the worst of her. But what she didn't realize is that I had stayed through worse. Through silence. Through sharp words masked as jokes. Through being compared to who she used to love. Through the slow erosion of every part of me that didn't serve her comfort. I had stayed. Until staying became another form of self-abandonment. And now, she was realizing the cost of what she said. Not just the words, but the weight behind them. Because when someone tells you, this is just who I am, and uses it as a shield against growth, against change, against meeting you halfway, they're not being honest. They're setting terms. Terms that often come at the cost of your peace. I stood up from the bed. Not with resentment. Not with finality. Just with quiet acceptance. She followed me to the door. Asked, is this it? Voice cracking. hands trembling. Like she'd finally understood that some lines don't come with second chances. And I turned to her, looked her in the eyes, and said, "You wanted me to stop trying, and I did. You just didn't expect that to include trying to save us." I left with no suitcase, no dramatic exit, just keys in my pocket, and peace in my chest. She sent messages for days, said she missed me, said she didn't know she could lose me like that she thought love meant staying no matter what. But I had finally learned that love also means knowing when to walk away, when trying turns into begging, when understanding becomes enabling, when loving them means forgetting how to love yourself. I didn't reply to her messages, because there was nothing left to say. She wasn't a villain, and I wasn't a victim. We were just two people, standing in the ruins of a love she thought would survive anything, even neglect. But I had survived it, not the relationship, the leaving, and now she would have to survive, knowing that for the first time. I had believed her when she said, "This is who I am," and that I had quietly responded, "Then I can't stay."